So welcome to this digital procurement world session about how to elevate dirty data to concrete change. I find it an exciting topic as such. Speaking today, myself is Sammeli Sammalkorpi. I'm CEO and co-founder at Sieva, and hopefully soon I'll be joined by Laila. She is the head of global procurement processes and tools at Schindler, and I'm sure she's going to introduce herself a bit later on. But let's start going. Now, I think this is something we all can easily agree to. The world's most valuable resource nowadays is not any longer oil, but it's really the data. And I do believe this is a great opportunity for procurement, because procurement is the key interface between the company and the upstream ecosystem of suppliers, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 suppliers, and so forth. So procurement is well positioned to capture that external data and process it for the benefit of the company to create a competitive advantage, but also, of course, for the purpose of elevating procurement as a function. And yes, now we have a Laila. Over to you, a quick intro, and I was already going on, and then let's continue.
Yeah, thanks for catching up. Very warm welcome also from my side. My name is Laila from Schindler. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Thanks, Laila. And great that we got also you on the real stage as well. So the point is, procurement has a great opportunity by leveraging the data from the upstream ecosystem. But now let's dig a bit deeper and try to understand where this all procurement data is coming from. And I see three distinct phases of innovation when it comes to procurement software, but also on procurement data. In the 70s, it all started when the ERPs, SAPs, and Oracles started to automate and digitize transactional procurement processes. And as much as we love to hate these systems for the transactional nature of these systems, we need to admit, and it's healthy to admit, that they do form the operational core of any modern large enterprise. A lot of good stuff was born in the 70s. These ERPs became commonplace, but also I was born in the 70s. And actually, I need to share the fact that my parents had a very special idea what I should become when I grow up. They wanted me to become a reindeer farmer. And here you see young myself in the traditional reindeer farming costume looking very unhappy. Luckily, things didn't went that way. Now, let's go to 90s. And that's when the procurement function started to get more mature. And it was evident that the transactional systems could not cater for the more strategic needs of strategic sourcing, strategic contract management, and so forth. And therefore, you have the era of sourcing suites that fulfill the more strategic needs of procurement functions. And the ERPs create a lot of data. These systems, of course, create even more data. And also, these sourcing systems did not replace the ERPs. They complemented them on certain critical areas. That's why we also established Sieva. I'm one of the co-founders 18 years ago to really make sense out of all of this data. But now I do actually feel that we are really living through a third wave of innovation, and this is super exciting. Again, not replacing, but complementing these existing solutions. We are seeing a lot of best-of-breed systems that solve certain hyper-specific business needs and create more data. And actually, if you look at the procurement software landscape today, there's just so much VC money thrown into procurement software. There's so much innovation, so much new players, and not only new players, complete new categories of procurement software. It is evident that no single system, even SAPs or Oracles, can serve all of that. So within the procurement, you need to pick and mix. You need to figure out which of the systems and solutions provide a crucial functionality, crucial data set for you to really take next step in procurement. You can't have all of them. You can't afford it. Doesn't make sense. You need to make the right choices with solutions you are going to pick. But what is clear is that if there was the dream that one day SAP or Coupa or Evalua has all procurement needs covered with the one suite, that's not true. That's failed. There's so much innovation that to drive procurement to next level, you need to leverage that innovation, which means that you will have data assets in multiple different places. Now, the new breed of solutions is also different. It's not only more systems, it's also different kind of systems. First of all, they are cloud native, subscription-based, typically no upfront investment required. It's easier to go in with the new systems. It's also easier to get out if they don't fit your purpose. They are also approaching consumer-grade usability, which also means that from user adoption point of view, it's easy to get in and out. Now, the second point I think is the most differentiating factor. They are data-centric. In the old world, you purchase a software and you fill it with the data, users input data. In the new world, they sell you a software, but actually the value prop what they are selling is the underlying data. If you think risk methods for supply chain risk, supplier IO for diversity, EcoVadis for sustainability, Mintech for commodity prices, EcoInvent for carbon, a lot of these providers are actually selling you data sets disguised as a software. So that's what you also need to figure out as a procurement person. Are you buying a software, or are you buying a data, or are you buying a combination of them? These solutions are also hyper-specific. The dream with suites is always one suite takes care of all. It failed. It's not true. These guys don't even pretend that. They realize that they are solving a very specific challenge, sometimes even a category-specific or industry-specific challenge, and they want to be best in that. And as they recognize that they are hyper-specific, they of course design for connectivity as well. You have the APIs, you have the ways to kind of connect these systems together. So it's an ecosystem of best of breeds that's emerging to complement the core transactional systems. So more innovation and more data. And this is where the dirty data comes in. The challenge is not about having enough data. You are drowning on data, everybody is. The challenge is how to capture and that data and how to make sense out of that data. And now every good presentation needs to have 2x2 matrix. I'm not disappointing you guys. I think there's 4 kinds of data. There's the traditional structured internal data, purchase orders, invoices, stuff that nicely goes to database tables and columns, and you can dream about creating perfect master data. This has been the traditional base for spend analysis, for example. It's still super valuable. It's still, for example, what we do as well. But even though there's been 2 decades of making perfect master data, we all know how good quality that data is. So even for this easy data set, internal structured data, you are having data quality challenges. Then we go to unstructured internal data, contract texts, descriptions in transactions, RFP answers from the suppliers and so forth. It's still internal data. It's easy to access in that sense, but it's unstructured. And whatever challenges with data quality you have with the structured data, it's exponential here. And this is all the easy internal data where you have, at least in theory, perfect governance and ability to impact on the quality. When you go to external data, which is now the new boom, the new era of innovation, it's not only dirty data, it's also not designed for your internal consumption. So you have data quality challenges, but it's the data is different. How do you combine that with internal data is the challenge. So what I believe really is that to create competitive advantage, to leverage this procurement data opportunity, what procurement functions need is an analytics layer to collect, cleanse, and combine data into strategic actions. And how does such a kind of platform look like? At one hand side, you need to realize that you have this operational, transactional, process-driven core. The SAPs, the Coupas, the Evolas, and so forth. They may be still partly on-prem. They are also moving to cloud. But whichever is the case, you need to capture the invoices, purchase orders, master data from that, and bring that to your analytics layer. I, of course, believe strongly that Sievo is the only right solution for analytics layer. But regardless of your tech setup there, you need to link all of this data to categories, do the spend classification exercise. You need to link that data to suppliers for traditional analytics needs. But there's more to that. And then you have this new world, these domain-specific, software players or data providers that can provide you data on risk, diversity, carbon, sustainability, commodities. And of course, these guys say to you, yes, we have a perfect API, you can just capture the data, so be it. But the real challenge is that to make sense out of that data, you need to combine these data sets to your category structures, to your supplier structures, and so forth, so that you can combine the data for the insights. So, for example, it's nice to know that there's a risk with certain supplier that you get from risk methods, or there's a sustainability issue that you get from EcoVadis, or that there's a kind of commodity price volatility that you get from Mintech. The key is to be able to combine that with internal data to create the insights. 1 + 1 is 3. You need to understand what are the implications for different categories, for different businesses, for different end products, and that's how you create those insights. And that's a key capability, combining internal and external data to these key structures such as supply and category. Of course, procurement is not an island. You have enterprise data lake program probably ongoing. So what we need to also make sure is that this program accelerates and complements the enterprise data lakes and don't dream that it will substitute them. Now, to recap, procurement is sitting on top of goldmine of data, all of this external upstream data. It will be dirty. There's no way around it. You will not be able to master data manage internet for perfection. You need to create capabilities to collect, cleanse, and combine this data. And of course, I'm using my 30 seconds of commercial advertisement. This is exactly what Sievo does: visibility on spend, savings, but also forecast, diversity, sustainability, risk, so forth, combining internal external data. And this is what we are going to also hear how Schindler is using Sievo, leveraging one concrete example on compliance, how data can be used for the benefits. So also I want to highlight, as much as I love analytics and stuff like that, it's completely valueless unless it drives real change with people and their behavior. And this is where I will hand over to Laila. Please take it away.
Thanks, Samili. So Samili vividly illustrated how over the time the source of data grows and how much it is important to deal with this data. That data becomes more and more an asset. For the ones that were lucky to hear the keynote from Jan yesterday, he was also saying that we're entering an area of analytics. Analytics is really key to drive change. This is the big picture. Now we're going a bit more into detail, and I will show you what we did with data to drive some change. Who are we? We are a Swiss traditional company with almost 150 years of experience in the market, spread all over the world, going close to 70,000 employees, based in 100 countries, 1,000 different locations. And what do? We're one of the market leaders in elevators, in escalators, and in moving walks. Like any bigger enterprise, of course, we are facing difficulties or challenges like diverse supply base, diverse supplier base, fragmented processes, and so on. And if we go back to this slide, which Samili was already picking up, of course, over the course of time, yeah, all good. Of course, over the course of time, we have different solutions implemented, right? We're a complex organization, widely spread. So we're having different solutions that we were selecting over time. As Samili was saying, it's hardly to find one solution that is covering everything. We need to pick a mix, and so did we. But what is the important here is that we pick all those things and we incorporate them in the analytics layer that at the end gives us transparency about the reality we're facing, right? So this is the importance about what we're doing here. And I would like to share with you a project on procurement that we started many years ago, because as Samili was stating, procurement is more and more in the focus, and this was also for us. So many years ago, we started on a high level. We're working together with Sievo for many years. So we started on a high level, just looking where is our spend allocated. And if you remember, in this 1,000 locations, we found out that the majority of our spend is fragmented in there. And we down them on processes and categories to see a bit how is bought with us, with whom is bought. And we found out that we need some levers, or also called implementation vehicles, that give more support in the area that we were looking at. Of course, we came up with a bigger program with different initiatives, and we validated in a first step this with our key stakeholders, right? To understand if this is something that we can do. One of those initiatives was the introduction of an EP2P platform. This is now not provided by Sievo, because Sievo is specialized in a different area, but we picked an EP2P platform. And I'm showing you a process that most of you will relate to, because surely some know this or knew this from before as it was. So how did purchasing look like at Schindler? You needed something to somebody that didn't know where to find it and brought you to somebody else, which was most probably in the warehouse. They told you, pick this supplier. You go and look if they're on the vendor list, and of course they are not. So you go to somebody else and find a different supplier and check then again if they are on the vendor list. Yes, they are. So you ask for a quotation, you place a PO, and at the end, your item arrives. So as you can see, this was a cumbersome process that we wanted to improve with this EP2P platform introduction. So we had a great idea at the beginning, and we had pilots, voluntaries, if you want so, that would like to implement with us. We of our entities, of course, internal pilots. We went live with those. It was a big celebration. It was a great success. And after a while, we were looking at the reality, and we were asking ourselves, is it really such a success when we look at the numbers? And we found very quickly that we need to take some actions to get out of this valley of tears. Not so drastic, but kind of. And let's go back to the business objectives that we were having. One of our drivers was that we want to improve the process that I was showing before, right? So this cumbersome, redundant process that needs to be cleaned up. The other thing was that we wanted to understand what we are buying and gain some transparency also in terms of what could be predefined and what not. And of course, we wanted to apply levers on certain digitized spend to have more savings. So besides other KPIs, that I'm focusing on 3 KPIs that we started to measure. One was the share of active users, the other one was the transaction coverage, and the last one, the spend coverage. So looking at what we developed with Cievo, because this is a customized solution, I will show you 2 examples. A very good one and a one with some room for improvements. And let's go on to these 3 KPIs that I'm highlighting. So the first one is the share of digital procurement orders. And you can see that between one and the other entity in this time frame that I was monitoring, there was a huge difference of 63% to 11%. If we go to the digitized spend, the value, you see that it has even larger discrepancy of 52 to 2%. And in the last case of the share of users, that shows us about the acceptance also of the change management, you see 83 to 58, which is still a big discrepancy. So you're surely interested now, what did we do about it, right? Yesterday in the opening keynote of Michael, if you remember, he was talking about why do digital initiatives fail. And one of it was that it was for the sake of digitization that things were done and not for the sake of business objectives. This was not the case in our example. But what about this cultural transformation? Remember the process that I showed you before about how to procure things. And what about upskilling people to open their minds for digital solutions? So here, those KPIs, they seem pretty simple, but they're having different sources that we combined, and we could dig deeper that we need to discuss with. And for example, one outcome was that we need to, besides the training materials, a Q&A page where they can search for answers if they have specific answers. We also introduced monthly recurring trainings where we tackle specific topics that came more often up in the meanwhile that are very specific. One thing that we also found out, and here we need to cite Simon Sinek with Start with a Why, is we need to go back to the beginning and really preach while we're doing change and what is the benefit of going this journey together. So saying this, I would like to hand over back to Samani. I wish you're enjoying this event as much as I do. Have fun, and yes, thanks a lot.
Thanks, Laila, for providing that concrete example. One example how Schindler is leveraging Cievo. Of course, other examples exist. And also, sort of, as you probably can imagine, Schindler is not the only client we have, but we are basically serving large enterprises across different, let's say, industries, across different regions, providing visibility to spend, compliance, but also diversity, risk, sustainability, so forth, through a procurement software product. Somebody said in the chat, nothing wrong with the reindeers. That may be the case. Of course, I'm reflecting sometimes whether I should have gone for the reindeer farming. At least purely from the financial point of view, I enjoy much more in this space. Cievo is growing, self-financed in a hockey stick growth, and it's great pleasure to be here in the digital procurement world. I'm sure I enjoy this setting much more than catching reindeers in northern Finland, where it snowed already this week. So with that, thank you from our side. Also sharing my contact details here. So if there's anything you want to discuss with procurement, analytics, even reindeer farming, feel free to reach out. I think we do have a couple of minutes left, so you can address questions in the QA side, and we'll be taking them with Laila. But with that, thank you on my behalf as well. Enjoy the rest of the conference. And let's see what we have on the Q&A side. Yeah, let me take the first question from Camille. Thank you. How is Sievo using AI machine learning to improve SKU, spend visibility data from multiple systems, getting enhanced data from multiple internal data sources? That's a great question. I think one of the traditional challenges in spend visibility, but I think this also applies to external data sources, is how do you make sense on the very dirty heterogeneous material or SKU data? And what we believe is a collaborative classification, which is a human-machine collaboration. Yes, you should leverage machine for certain kind of data profiles. MRO spare parts is a great example. Free text descriptions, applying text clustering there is another example. But you also need a human to validate and further train the machine learning and AI. I don't believe there's a magic box that you just throw the data and get perfect data out. What I believe in is creating the right feedback loops between humans and machine, where the machine does the heavy lifting, but human provides the training and guidance for the software. And that's how we've sort of approached the cleansing approach. Then the second question from Luis, how the data is usually combined through API. I think there's multiple steps. There's capturing the data. There's one way, how do you do it for on-prem systems? For the modern cloud systems, you typically use an API, but that's just the beginning to get hold of the data sets. Then you need to combine these data sets. On your internal systems, you are calling vendors with certain numbers and names. In the external systems, different numbers and names. And that's where the Sievo software and expertise comes in. We have processed 85 million different vendor names, so we can kind of use that data set to automate this matching process so that you can do the technical combination. And then on top of that, we apply the opportunity identification logic. How do you identify risk positions? How do you identify payment term opportunities and so forth? Thanks for those questions, Camille and Luis. Anything else? Anything else you'd like to ask in the last, I guess, 1 minute we've got left of the session? Yeah, there's a question if you have use cases where clients ask to expose your clean data to others. Yes, we do. Quite often, Sievo is not the only solution and not only the only analytics solution in the universe, but we do certain cleansing, we serve certain procurement-specific use cases, but then we also provide data back to other solutions that the client has for other use cases. So I think we also do realize that we can't be everything for our client. We can serve certain specific use case on procurement analytics, and then we want to provide data back. Thanks for that question as well. Good. If not anything else, I definitely thank you, everybody in the audience, for participating today. Special thanks for Laila for co-hosting with me. It was great pleasure. Enjoy the rest of the digital procurement world, and enjoy reindeers as well. Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Bye.